At the company's annual gala, Victoria Ainsworth's newly hired assistant rushed on stage and snatched my trophy right out of my hands. "You deadbeat, you've never even attended a single company dinner. All you do is sleep and play video games in your dorm. What right do you have to win the Greatest Contribution Award?" He turned to face all the employees, shouting with righteous indignation. Sincere Clark is nothing but a shirker who got in through connections. He's always late and leaves early, never does any real work, and shouldn't even be considered for an award. People like him should be kicked out of the company and blacklisted from the industry forever. I instinctively glanced at Victoria Ainsworth in the audience. She was gazing at her assistant with pure adoration, as if he were some grand hero swooping in to vanquish her enemies. I chuckled and turned to leave. "Fine, I don't want the award. I'll go process my resignation right now." But Victoria's father, the president of the company, dropped to his knees in front of everyone, begging me to stay. "Dr. Clark, please don't go. The company can't survive without you." On Wednesday morning, I was fast asleep in the employee dormitory when old Joe, the doorman, woke me up. "Sincere, my boy, stop sleeping. The awards ceremony is happening in the grand auditorium. You're getting the most important contribution award." He sounded more excited than I was, but I didn't feel a shred of excitement. I just rolled over lazily. "Not going. I was up all night gaming. I need to catch up on sleep. It's just a small award, no need to be there in person." That's what I said, but the truth is, I've never even shown up to accept national-level awards. The company usually accepts them on my behalf. The reason is simple: I hate schmoozing. I'd rather play a couple of rounds of a game to clear my head than listen to a bunch of strangers shower me with fake praise. "Son, I think you really have to go today." Old Joe grinned and leaned in closer. I saw her with my own two eyes. "That young lady you've been pining for, the one who's been on a business trip to the States for the last 6 months, she's here today." I shot up in bed and grabbed my phone in disbelief. "Victoria is back?" She didn't tell me. Not only had Victoria not mentioned her return, but our last chat was from a week ago, when I asked her about her weekend plans and what she had for dinner. She never replied. Without a second thought, I quickly washed my face, brushed my teeth, changed into some decent clothes, and headed out. The dorm wasn't far from the office, just a 5-minute bike ride. As I pushed the door open, the host was announcing my award. And now for the most important award of the year, the Employee Contribution Award, which goes to Sincere Clark from the R&D department. The scattered applause was mixed with sarcastic whispers. "Sincere Clark? Isn't that Rip Van Winkle? I heard he sleeps in his dorm 29 days a month, and on the one day the power went out, he spent the night at a gaming cafe. He deserves an award? Shh, keep it down. He's got powerful connections. President Ainsworth himself has his back." Victoria Ainsworth is the president's own daughter, and she works her butt off just like the rest of us. 6 months ago, she had to pass the company's rigorous evaluation to earn that spot to expand the business overseas. No back doors for her. Well, I heard that after Victoria and her male assistant went abroad together, someone saw them going into an apartment late at night, acting very intimate. My heart sank. Just as I was hearing that crucial piece of gossip, someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Well, this is a rare sight, Sincere. You actually came to accept your award in person?" President Ainsworth beamed at me and pointed to the stage. "I just got a call. Have to step out for a bit. You go on up there and embrace your moment of glory under the gaze of the entire company." I walked onto the stage to receive my award. As I did, I saw Victoria sitting in the front row, closest to me. Her eyes were ice cold, completely devoid of warmth. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could even say a word, a figure leaped onto the stage from the audience and, without any warning, snatched the trophy from my hands. "You deadbeat, you've never even attended a single company dinner. All you do is sleep and play video games in your dorm. What right do you have to win the Greatest Contribution Award?" The one who had snatched the trophy was none other than Victoria's assistant, Ethan Miller, the man from the gossip. Ethan Miller had stolen my award, yet he looked at me with contempt as if I were some kind of filth. Sincere Clark, I don't care what connections you have. I'll say what no one else dares to. I will expose you for the fraud you are. He acted as if he were performing a great service, turning to the audience and raising his arms. Sincere Clark is nothing but a shirker who got in through connections. He's always late and leaves early, never does any real work, and shouldn't even be considered. For an award, people like him should be kicked out of the company and blacklisted from the industry forever. When I had accepted the award moments before, there was barely any applause, but after Ethan's incitement, the entire auditorium erupted in a thunderous, overwhelming ovation. Well said, we support you, Assistant Miller. I've been sick of deadbeats like Sincere Clark for a long time. How is it fair that the rest of us work our asses off for $2,800 a month while he sleeps in his dorm all day and rakes in tens of thousands? Is there any justice in the world? Listening to these insults and attacks, I didn't feel a trace of anger. In fact, I found it laughable. From a young age, I displayed an astonishing talent for physics. By my teens, I had already earned several PhDs from overseas and was a sought-after genius, with top universities and corporations vying to retain me with huge offers. But I wasn't moved by money. My only goal was to serve my country. After completing my studies, I resolutely returned home. Upon my return, I could have joined any top-tier company with better conditions and pay. But my grandfather mentioned that his old army buddy's son had opened a relevant research company in the city and had a granddaughter around my age he wanted me to meet. Out of respect for my grandfather, I came here. I turned down all fancy titles and positions, insisting on starting from the bottom. Over the past few years, with my help, President Ainsworth's company overcame several industry-wide challenges. Its market value quintupled, and it rose to become #1 in the country and a top 10 global player. I just never publicized the fact that I was the one providing the core technological support because I don't like to show off. So of course I wasn't going to get angry over attacks from these nobodies. I just instinctively looked at Victoria in the audience. I've always hated being treated like some kind of freak genius, so when I was getting to know Victoria, I deliberately hid my brilliant resume. Victoria had always been lukewarm towards me, but everything changed after she met Ethan Miller. Take right now, for instance. The beautiful Miss Ainsworth, who had just been giving me the cold shoulder, was now gazing at Ethan with pure adoration, as if he were some grand hero swooping in to vanquish her enemies. Ethan looked back at her and right in front of me blew her a kiss. Victoria, far from being angry, shyly made a heart shape with her hands in return. Watching from the stage, I almost laughed out of sheer anger. Victoria knew perfectly well that her family wanted to set us up. For her to do this in front of so many people was a deliberate attempt to humiliate me. Are you sure you want to kick me out? I frowned, looking at the two of them. I had thought Victoria would inherit her father's intelligence, or at the very least his good character. I never imagined she'd be the type to judge a book by its cover. Of course, you useless waste, all you do is squander company resources, sleeping and gaming in your dorm day and night. Why shouldn't you leave? Ethan sneered at me. It would be one thing if you were content to just coast through life as a nobody, but you actually have the nerve to let President Ainsworth give you an award, the Best Contribution Award, no less. You ask yourself, do you deserve it? Ethan was practically spitting as he spoke. The people around him chimed in with righteous indignation. Yeah, do you deserve it? Can the boss's pet just get lost? Look at Miss Ainsworth. The president's own daughter works diligently, so what gives you the right to use back doors? No matter how good-natured I was, I couldn't tolerate their repeated insults. Ethan Miller, I'm afraid you don't have the authority to make me leave. I stared at him coldly. Victoria's attitude had already made everything clear. She supported Ethan. Too bad for them. Neither of them could decide whether I stayed or left what. You don't actually think you can do whatever you want forever just because President Ainsworth has your back, do you? Ethan looked at me, amused. He stepped forward, grabbed my collar and said, word by word, let me tell you, Victoria is pregnant with my child. I'm going to the Ainsworth family to propose very soon. I don't care what connections you have that make the president indulge you. But, as long as I'm here, you will never be with Victoria. You're about to be kicked out." I frowned and pushed Ethan away, but he stumbled back dramatically.
"Oh no, my phone." He forcefully threw his phone to the ground.
Anyone with eyes could see he'd thrown it on purpose, but the entire crowd immediately turned on me. "Sincere Clark, you dare to hit someone? Who do you think you are? The doormat is fighting back? Let's get him." The scene descended into chaos. In the scuffle, I was pushed to the ground and took a few kicks. After a while, Victoria unhurriedly stepped forward to stop the crowd.
"All right, everyone, that's enough of a lesson.
"If you actually injure him, he'll sue you." Victoria smirked, looking at me with utter contempt. I got up, disheveled, but the first thing I did was check my own phone. It's ruined. Looking at the shattered screen, my heart sank. I had an international negotiation call tonight, and the phone had important documents I needed to present to the client. "What's so special about that piece of junk?" Ethan sneered, waving his own phone in my face. "This phone has tons of company secrets, including the documents for tonight's multinational negotiation. Do you have any idea how much money you're going to cost the company?" The crowd below started chanting, "Pay up, pay up." My expression darkened. Did this leech Ethan really think the company's international business was built by him? The only reason Victoria was sent abroad was so her father could give her some credentials before she took over the Ainsworth Corporation. The entire 6 months she was overseas, I was the one who lined up almost all her deals. Otherwise, how could she have turned around a company that had been losing money for nearly 3 years in just half a year? I never planned to brag about it, but I also never expected Ethan to have the audacity to posture in front of me. Is that so? I dusted myself off. "Then what do you plan to do about it?" I stared at Ethan. He smirked. "The documents are gone, so the deal is gone. This deal was worth at least $100 million. You can figure out how to compensate for that," he said it so casually. But the employees in the audience were furious. "You should be damned, Sincere Clark. You ruined a $100 million project just like that. I bet even President Ainsworth won't protect you this time, Pay. Up as per company policy, you have to compensate at least 10% without Ethan even having to ask. The crowd had already done the math for me. Fine, I looked at the vultures circling me. If it weren't for me, would they be living so comfortably? 10 million, is it? I'll have someone deliver it right now. Just make sure you accept it with that." I grabbed a phone from someone nearby and made a call. Ethan watched me with disdain. After I hung up, he scoffed. "Stop pretending. No matter how close you are to President Ainsworth, is he really going to just give you $10 million? Just get on your knees and apologize to me and Victoria. If you do, I'll work extra hard tonight and maybe, just maybe, I can salvage the project." The crowd looked at him with admiration. "See, that's what you call competence. Will that useless waste Sincere Clark ever achieve half of what Assistant Miller has? He's a joke. What can he do besides bluff? And the funny thing is, he can't even do that right." The crowd began to taunt me again. I remained silent, just waiting for my people to arrive. A few minutes later, Victoria grew impatient. "Sincere Clark, can you stop wasting our time? Do you know how long you've delayed the annual gala with your nonsense?" "Yeah, this is the company gala. What right do you have to waste all our time? You'll never earn 10 million in your life. Why are you still struggling?" "Kneel, apologize." The crowd chanted in unison for me to kneel and apologize. Just as Ethan was walking towards me with a vicious grin, about to force me to my knees, a group of people arrived at the auditorium. "Mr. Clark, I've brought the 10 million you requested." The man in the lead was none other than the general manager of the city's main bank, Manager Quincy. He clapped his hands and the men behind him opened several briefcases, each containing $1 million in neatly stacked bills. "Is that Manager Quincy? Am I seeing things? He personally delivered money for Sincere Clark? He called him Mr. Clark? What kind of background does this guy have?" The crowd was stunned. Ethan's jaw dropped as he watched the scene unfold. When Manager Quincy confirmed the amount with him, he finally snapped out of it. His eyes lit up, and he immediately took all the money. All right, Sincere Clark, since the money's here, I'll let the previous matter slide. He was grinning from ear to ear, but I just stared at him coldly. Now that your issue is resolved, shouldn't we discuss my compensation? The room went silent for a moment. A moment later, Ethan burst out laughing. He took my phone from my hand. Buddy, what do you want me to compensate you for? Your game data? I'll give you $200 to replace the screen. Worst comes to worst, I'll buy you a new phone. As long as you have the SIM card, you can get your game account back, right? Ethan mocked me with disdain. The people in the audience joined in, laughing at me. Victoria looked at me with even more disappointment and said, I thought you might have some connections, that maybe I could respect you a little. I didn't expect you to be so brainless. Manager Quincy beside me tried to speak up, but I stopped him. Manager Quincy, you can head back. Also, tonight's international project is canceled. Cancel the foreign currency exchange we had scheduled as well, I spoke coldly. Manager Quincy froze. He gestured toward Victoria, his hand trembling with frustration. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he left in disappointment. Tonight's deal was a multinational collaboration, and the other party only accepted a specific foreign currency, all of which I had arranged to exchange through Manager Quincy. A currency exchange worth hundreds of millions would have been a huge profit for the bank, and another feather in Manager Quincy's cap. Who would have thought it would all be ruined by Victoria and this thankless crew? I don't know why you're putting on an act. What does the international project have to do with you? Ethan continued to mock me. Exactly, that was all Assistant Miller's hard work. What right do you have to talk about tonight's deal?
Kid, have you been gaming so much you're having hallucinations? You think the whole company revolves around you?
When President Ainsworth gets back, we'll have him fire you. I remained unmoved by the crowd's taunts. I just looked at Victoria and said, I only stayed here to help you out of respect for your father. I thought you would have inherited his good character. But you're far from what I imagined. You even got pregnant with your assistant's child while knowing your father wanted to set us up. In that case, I have nothing more to say. I am retracting all core technology provided to the Ainsworth Corporation. I spoke slowly. If President Ainsworth were here, he would understand that my words were a death sentence for his family. Retracting the technology I provided meant that their 3 major factories would all have to halt production. Once production stopped, so would their supply chain. And if they failed to deliver for 3 days, their breach of contract penalties would accumulate to an astronomical figure. Pfft, ha ha ha. Ethan leaned on a table, laughing so hard that tears welled up in his eyes. Victoria just shook her head and chuckled. Clearly, no one believed me, and no one cared what I had to say. Sincere Clark, I can't stand you anymore. I'm firing you right now. Just get out, okay? Victoria waved her hand dismissively, but I maintained my deadpan expression. You don't have the authority to fire me, and I advise you to consult your father before you try. I stared at Victoria coldly. She disgusted me. To think I had held out hope for someone like her for so long, the thought made me feel utterly ridiculous. Are you insane? Are you saying only the president can fire you? Ethan still had that arrogant, mocking look on his face. I looked at him with a cold smile and said, Wrong. I'm saying even the president wouldn't dare fire me. The crowd erupted again, everyone calling me a lunatic. He's lost it, absolutely lost it. How dare he say something so audacious? Ethan pointed at me, his voice trembling with anger. Arrogance, utter arrogance. Victoria, remove him from the company system right now. Hurry. His commanding tone would have rubbed anyone the wrong way. But Victoria obediently took out her phone and began the process of firing me through the system. Sincere Clark, you could have left with dignity. She snorted. She thought she could fire me, but a moment later my phone buzzed. I told you, no one can fire me. I showed them the notification on my screen. My security clearance in the company had always been hidden. Only President Ainsworth could see my system level. And if anyone else tried to fire me, he would be notified immediately, and it would require my personal confirmation before I could be removed from the system. Victoria stared at the system prompt. stunned. What kind of spell did you cast on my dad? He gave you this kind of top-level special access? She looked at me, bewildered. I didn't explain, just stared at her coldly and said, "Now, can we discuss my compensation?" Ethan stepped forward with a sneer. He said contemptuously, "Fine. Let's hear how much you want in compensation." I held up one finger. Ethan froze, then said disdainfully, $10,000? You think that old second-hand phone is still worth that much? But fine, I'm a nice guy. He started to pull out his wallet, but I shook my head, indicating he was wrong. Victoria frowned. Then how much? It's just a broken phone. You're not going to ask for 100,000, are you? She looked at me impatiently. I shook my head again. Seeing this, the surrounding people laughed with a mix of anger and amusement. Not 10,000, not 100,000. You mean 10 million or 100 million? They questioned me with sneers. I didn't bother beating around the bush. I said word by word, 10 billion. Dollars, I added. The room was silent for a second, then erupted in hysterical laughter. Damn, that's hilarious security. Get this lunatic out of here. Are you insane from all that gaming? $10 billion? You just say whatever comes to mind, don't you? I guess President Ainsworth knew he was delusional, so he kindly kept him in the company out of pity. Everyone in the room was bent over with laughter. Victoria's face had completely darkened. My dad was crazy. He actually wanted me to go on a date with a psychopath like this? She gritted her teeth, stepped forward, and pointed at my nose. You'd better get out of here now before you regret it when security throws you out. Just as she finished speaking, President Ainsworth finally rushed in. He ran in from outside, taking 3 steps at a time. Dr. Clark, please don't go our company. Can't lose you, Dad? Victoria stared in shock at her father. At that moment, President Ainsworth had run up to me, his expression frantic as he looked around. Who dared to fire Dr. Clark? He was furious. The faces of the people around us changed as they exchanged confused glances. Victoria frowned and asked her father, Dad, what's wrong? Sincere Clark is just a useless waste. Why do you care so much about him? Hearing her words, the president almost slapped her. In the end, he just clapped a hand over her mouth. What nonsense are you talking? Do you have any idea how much Dr. Clark has helped our family? If he's a waste, then everyone here, including me, is the worst of the worst. President Ainsworth's voice cracked. The crowd's expressions changed again, but Victoria still didn't believe it. Dad, we've already looked into it. Sincere Clark is delusional. You only took him in because his grandfather and my grandfather were army buddies. But why go this far? The company won't be affected if he leaves, but keeping him here makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Victoria broke free from her father's grasp and continued to mock me. President Ainsworth was so angry he nearly fainted, clutching his chest. You shut up. I didn't tell you his identity. Partly because I was worried you'd be under too much pressure, and partly because I wanted Dr. Clark to see the real you. But you. President Ainsworth clutched his chest and sank into a chair. Victoria rushed to pour him some water and pat his back. Dad, stop joking. If he was really that capable, why didn't he ever stand up to us? And if you knew what he said, you'd die laughing too. Victoria continued, completely oblivious. Ethan chimed in, as if seeking credit, and said mockingly, This lunatic said he was going to cancel tonight's international deal and have manager Quincy from the main bank cancel the foreign exchange. Then he said something about retracting all core tech support for the Ainsworth family. And finally, he even said that you don't have the authority to fire him. It was hilarious. Ethan slapped his thigh, laughing. But the next second, the president's hand slapped across his face. Shut up, the slap was so hard, Ethan's face was contorted. Get on your knees and apologize to Dr. Clark right now. The president's voice trembled as he ordered him to apologize to me. But I just said calmly, No need, Mr. Ainsworth. I've already settled things with them. A compensation of $10 billion, and I'll leave immediately. You dare say that again? Ethan's eyes widened in anger, but another slap from the president immediately followed. Did I say you could speak? He roared. Ethan froze, too scared to move. Then the president turned to me, his voice trembling. "Dr. Clark, I'll give you $20 billion. No, $30 billion, just please, take back what you said. Please." He was so emotional that it seemed if I refused, he might just die on the spot. Now the crowd was truly dumbfounded. Victoria in particular looked at me in utter disbelief. "Sincere Clark, who are you? What have you done to my father?" "Shut up, you ungrateful daughter." The president, trembling with rage, dragged Victoria over and forced her to her knees before me. "I'm so sorry, Dr. Clark. I never thought Victoria would do something like this. She's a good girl. She was never like this before. Part of the reason you came to the company was because you were interested in my daughter, wasn't it? I'll approve her marriage to you. Just please, reconsider your compensation demand." President Ainsworth looked at me desperately, but before I could speak, Victoria refused. "No, why should I marry someone like him?" She glared at me. "Sincere Clark, if you're a man, you'll refuse my father exactly. Miss Ainsworth and I are in love. How can someone like you just break us up?" Ethan also stepped forward, standing in front of her. Now it was the president's turn to be stunned. What did you say?" He stared blankly at Ethan. Ethan proudly pulled Victoria up. "Victoria is pregnant with my child. She was going to tell you the good news after the gala, but it seems we have to tell you now." He held his head high and even shot me a triumphant glance. Hearing this, President Ainsworth collapsed to the floor. "It's over. It's all over." His eyes went vacant. Ethan didn't hear him clearly and tried to help him up. "Dad, you can't just sit on the floor even if you're happy, right?" He reached out to help, but the president punched him in the face and started beating him on the ground. "You animal, if the Ainsworth family is ruined because of you, I'll make you wish you were dead in the end." It was Victoria who pulled him off. "Enough, Dad, what are you so afraid of? He's just a doormat who sleeps and plays games." Victoria simply couldn't comprehend. The president sat on the floor looking utterly defeated, on the verge of tears. "Sincere Clark, Dr. Clark, for the past 3 years, he is the one who has been providing us with the world's most advanced core technology. That's the only reason we've gotten this far. Do you know what it means if he retracts his technology? It means 99% of our current projects will be frozen, because every single one of them uses his technology, and all our future projects are based on his core tech." The president sat on the floor, truly wanting to cry. Only then did the people in the room realize I hadn't been bluffing. "What? He's the mysterious doctor providing the core technology? I thought that doctor worked for a top tech firm overseas. How could he be hiding in our company, pretending to be a lazy bum?" The crowd buzzed in shock. The president pounded the floor and said, "That's because Dr. Clark doesn't like to reveal his identity. We needed a gimmick to attract clients, so Dr. Clark humbled himself, and let us say the tech came from some fancy overseas company he was affiliated with. He did it all for us. Now the crowd was completely dumbfounded. Indeed, who would believe that a deadbeat who only played video games was the backbone of the entire company? How is that possible? He's just a deadbeat. Victoria's jaw hung open, unable to believe what she was hearing. I pursed my lips, no longer bothering to hide my identity. Let me be frank. Providing core technology was one part of it. The other part was me using my personal connections to bring you collaborations worth hundreds of billions. Why else do you think the top tech firms in the capital would deign to work with you? Why would the new tech park in the South offer to help with your production? It's because I made the calls. I guaranteed them that the Ainsworth family would make them money, and that I would provide partial tech support. I looked at Victoria coldly. Although it was pointless to explain too much to someone so ignorant, I wanted her to understand the consequences of offending me and your company overseas. You think you built it up through your own ability? The reality is all your partners agreed to work with you because of me. Impossible. Victoria denied it instantly. She gritted her teeth and said, "I don't know about here, but my success overseas was definitely my own doing." Hearing this, I sneered. "Is that so? Well, since you're so confident, why don't you call your client for tonight's international negotiation and ask if they still want to partner with you? I looked at Victoria with disdain. With trembling hands, Victoria stubbornly made the call. A moment later, she heard news she couldn't accept. Sorry, we've been informed that Dr. Clark is no longer with your company. We will not participate in any collaboration without him. The person on the other end had already heard about my departure. Without me, there was no guarantee of success. And without that guarantee, why would they bother going through the trouble of collaborating with a company from our country? Impossible. This is impossible, Victoria frantically called all her overseas partners. The answer was unanimously the same. Everyone, without exception, canceled their contracts, some even willing to pay penalties to get out. Victoria collapsed to the floor, staring at me in terror. Sincere, She opened her mouth, not knowing what to say. Just then, President Ainsworth, having recovered slightly, crawled and knelt before me. Dr. Clark, please, give us one more chance, he begged, tears and snot running down his face. To be honest, I felt a little pity, but to be equally honest, I had already done more than enough. Mr. Ainsworth, your people have already accepted my $10 million compensation. There's no turning back now. I spoke slowly. At first I wasn't angry. I even understood why they looked down on me. But that idiot Ethan had to extort me. And since he succeeded, this was no longer a matter that could be resolved by simply returning the money. Mr. Ainsworth, you have two choices. 1. You give me $10 billion in compensation and 50% of the company's original shares, and I will continue to provide you with technology. The second option is you keep your money to pay off the others, and I will retract all my technology. I looked at President Ainsworth calmly. His mouth hung open, his face a mask of bitter anguish. He couldn't choose. Sincere Clark, direct your anger at me. I'll marry you if I have to. Victoria cried, shielding her father. Ethan was shocked. No, Victoria, don't forget you're carrying my child. How can you compromise with him? Victoria smiled bitterly. Ethan, you have to understand. I was never born to be free. The Ainsworth family needs me now, and I must step up. My lip twitched as I watched the two of them. Are you two morons? I couldn't help but curse. Victoria froze. Who told you I'm even interested in you? You're pregnant with another man's child and you have the audacity to say you'll be with me? Who are you trying to disgust? Take a good look at yourself. You're a real piece of work. I never thought my adoration for Victoria could turn into such revulsion in just half an hour. In the end, I gave them one night to think it over. I would return to the company the next morning, and they had to pick one of my two options. That night, Victoria called me countless times. She dropped her facade and sent me a flood of messages. Sincere, I was blind before. I was foolish. The truth is, I fell in love with you the first moment I saw you. What happened with Ethan was an accident. I swear we only slept together once. I'm still clean. Please believe me, I would love to marry you, and I swear it would be for love, not to save my family later. She even sent some explicit photos. But she didn't know I had already blocked her. The next morning I arrived at the Ainsworth Corporation headquarters. The executives who used to look down on me the most were now lined up at the entrance to welcome me, each one trying to curry favor. Sincere Victoria, dressed to the nines, ran towards me, trying to throw herself into my arms. I sidestepped, and she nearly fell. Still, she looked at me fawningly and said, Sincere, I've kicked Ethan to the curb. I promise he will never appear before you again. How dare that leech offend you? If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have had such a falling out last night, right? She eagerly grabbed my hand. Sincere, can we start over? Just pretend the past never happened. I promise I will make you the happiest man in the world. Looking at the hypocritical woman before me, I mercilessly pushed her away. Miss Ainsworth, your actions yesterday already disgusted me. Please show some restraint. Otherwise, I'll add another condition. I will only continue to provide technology if you are fired. I looked at Victoria coldly. In a way, I should thank her. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have given up on relationships so completely. At least after being disgusted by her, I'll be off the dating scene for a while, which gives me a good opportunity to focus on myself either by filling my pockets or building my power. Victoria sat on the ground wailing, but no one paid her any attention. In the end, President Ainsworth made the difficult decision. He transferred 50% of the company's shares to me and paid me $10 billion. It was the only way for his family to survive. Even if he earned less than before, at least he was still earning, not facing immediate bankruptcy, right? The last I heard of Ethan Miller, he had been lured overseas by an online scam syndicate, had his kidneys harvested, and died a miserable death. Apparently, after being dumped by Victoria, he naively trusted some international friends he thought he had and was tricked into going there. At first, he was beaten with electric batons for not meeting his scamming quotas. Then, because he was somewhat effeminate, he was forced into prostitution. When he was completely used up, they took him for his organs. As for me, this whole affair made me much busier. I soon began to build my own business empire. You have to get burned to learn and grow. I just hope I don't have to learn any more lessons like this in the future.